Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. If you've been watching our channel for a while now, then you probably know that we like to do the occasional holiday-themed video when applicable. This year we decided that in addition to the usual dark and terrifying stories we usually cover, we would offer something a little bit lighter as well, covering some of the more strange and amusing crimes that have happened during the Christmas season over the years. Before we get to our list, if you enjoy our videos, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest releases. It really helps us to continue building the channel. And if you've watched a few of our videos already, you might not even realize that you're not subscribed. With that out of the way, here are 10 weird and hilarious Christmas crimes.
Back in Christmas of 2008, a Portsmouth, New Hampshire couple's holidays quickly went from season's greetings to season's beatings, when what should have been a fun morning of opening presents turned into an all-out brawl. According to reports, it all started when 24-year-old Randy Young and her boyfriend, 26-year-old Heath Blom, were opening up their presents on Christmas morning at the South Street home where they lived with Blom's grandparents. Things were going more or less fine until Blom opened up his present from Young, a Nintendo Wii. While we're guessing that most people, even those not particularly fond of Nintendo, would have graciously accepted the gift, this was apparently not how Blom responded. Instead, he proceeded to loudly complain to everyone in the room that this is not what he had wanted. He had been expecting a $1,000 remote control airplane instead. Blom's ungrateful and particularly childlike response reportedly continued throughout the morning and into the afternoon, during which he repeatedly said he hated his girlfriend's gift to anyone who would listen. Understandably, Young eventually decided that she'd had enough, and decided to pack up her bags and leave. She apparently hid the Wii before she did so, presumably as a sign of her anger towards her ungrateful boyfriend. However, when Young actually went to leave the residence, Blom allegedly tried to physically stop her, leading to a fight between the two of them in which Young punched Blom in the face, and Blom grabbed his girlfriend by the hair and hit her as well. When police were called to the South Street residence shortly before 2 p.m. that afternoon, they found both Young and Blom with bruises from their altercation. Both were arrested on misdemeanor charges of domestic-related simple assault. In news reports that followed, Young claimed that it was the worst Christmas ever. For his part, Blom attempted to explain his actions by saying he believed that his girlfriend was stealing the Wii when she attempted to leave the house. Not exactly the best excuse in the world if you ask us, since he had made it pretty clear before that point that he didn't care about the present.
An 11-year-old Ohio boy got the shock of his life during the Christmas season of 2011 when he discovered that a strange man had broken into his family's home and was busy getting into the holiday spirit. According to reports, sometime in early November of 2011, 44-year-old Terry Trent broke into a home belonging to the Henderson family in the Dayton suburb of Vandalia. Once inside, he began to hang up an assortment of Christmas decorations, including a large wreath on the house's garage door. After that, he lit some candles, turned on the TV, and started to relax. Drawn by the loud volume of what Trent was apparently watching, which we can only assume was a Christmas movie, the 11-year-old came out of his room to find the strange man sitting on his couch. Apparently, Trent was even playing with a couple of the 11-year-old's toys. Not entirely sure what to do about the situation, the boy called his mother, who was actually just next door. She immediately called the police. Apparently, when Trent realized that the 11-year-old was there, he was extremely polite to him and immediately apologized. He said he didn't mean to scare him and that he would grab his things and go. Police soon arrived, and he was arrested without any further incident. According to reports at the time, Trent had a history of drug charges, and it's believed that he was high on bath salts when he broke into the Hendersons' home. Though he had a pocket knife in his possession at the time of his arrest, those that knew him said he wouldn't have hurt a fly, describing him as a caring person who was involved with the Boy Scouts and local church programs to help convicted felons currently in prison.
Back in 2013, a South Carolina man found out the hard way just how nuts his common-law wife was when she beat and stabbed him with a ceramic squirrel decoration because he failed to bring home beer. According to reports, on December 24th, 44-year-old Helen Ann Williams was waiting for her husband to bring back a case or two of Christmas cold ones, but he arrived at their North Charleston home that night empty-handed. He explained that all of the stores had been closed and there was nothing he could do. After delivering the bad news, the man obviously assumed that the two of them would be able to move on without issue and began to make himself a sandwich in the kitchen. However, this assumption proved to be incorrect when Williams grabbed a nearby ceramic squirrel decoration and smashed it over his head. The attack didn't stop there, though. When the ceramic squirrel broke into pieces, Williams used at least one of them to stab her husband in the shoulder and chest. Thankfully, the man was able to go to a neighbor's house and call the police. When they arrived and questioned Williams, she claimed that her husband had fallen and cut himself. However, officers did not buy her excuse, as among other things, Williams literally had blood on her hands. She was arrested and charged with criminal domestic violence, and her husband was treated for his injuries.
In January of 2016, a 67-year-old Washington man quickly made headlines when he was arrested for a DUI while driving in Idaho. While you may be wondering what the Christmas connection is here, that's because we haven't told you the man's name. He had it legally changed to Santa Claus. According to reports, Mr. Claus ran afoul of the law when he was spotted driving in the wrong direction on a road in the city of Post Falls. When he was pulled over by police, he was still traveling in the wrong lane. When questioned about his behavior, Claus pleaded ignorance, saying that he was unfamiliar with the area. However, police soon came up with their own theory about his erratic driving when they smelled alcohol on his breath while talking to him. Claus admitted to having, quote, 3 or 4 beers at a local restaurant, and subsequently blew over the legal limit during a breathalyzer test. Santa Claus was arrested, though later had his DUI reduced to misdemeanor reckless driving because he cooperated with police. He pled guilty and paid a $700 fine.
In the lead-up to Christmas of 2014, 27-year-old Gerard Dupree and 30-year-old Tara Scott likely thought that they'd come up with the perfect holiday caper, one that would allow them to steal some high-priced toys and get away without being caught. The plan was simple. The pair would go into Walmart, Dupree would pretend to have a heart attack, and while everyone was distracted, Scott would make off undetected with stolen goods. On December 16th, the pair carried out their plan at a Walmart store in Lake Wales, Florida. Initially, it seemed to go off without a hitch. Dupree waited until Scott had grabbed the items he was there for and had placed them in his cart. Then he clutched at his chest and dropped to the ground near the entrance of the store. Soon, a group of concerned customers and employees had gathered around, and 911 was called. Meanwhile, Scott rolled his cart out the door and loaded his items into the SUV he and Dupree had driven to the store in. When the coast was clear, Dupree miraculously sprung up off the floor, dusted himself off, and walked out to the parking lot to meet his accomplice. Unfortunately for the two men, while their charade had successfully distracted employees and customers, the same could not be said for Walmart's store surveillance cameras. The crime was quickly uncovered when the footage was reviewed, and within 2 days of the theft, both Dupree and Scott had been arrested and charged with grand theft. For those wondering what the pair actually stole, you're in luck. We actually do know. Apparently, the entire crime was carried out so that Scott could steal a motorized Barbie car, a leapfrog tablet, and a Barbie glam vacation home. The items reportedly had a total value of approximately $370 at the time they were stolen.
All the folks down in Texas liked Santa a lot, but Aaron Urbanski from Cleburne did not. Aaron hated Santa and believed he was a heathen, and decided that everyone should know of his reasons. Alright, that's enough rhyming for now. On the morning of December 8th, 2018, many residents of Cleburne, Texas, excitedly arrived at St. Mark United Methodist Church for the annual Pancake Breakfast with Santa put on by the Cleburne Kiwanis Club. Aside from being a fun, festive outing for families, the Pancake Breakfast was a charity event meant to raise money to buy Christmas gifts for children in need. Things were going well until about 10 a.m., when local police received reports about a disturbance at the church. When officers arrived at the scene, they were told that a group of 3 people had shown up and were loudly and aggressively trying to spoil the morning's festivities. According to reports, the incident began when 31-year-old Aaron Urbanski and 2 others arrived to protest the event. They started by standing across the street from the event, yelling, "Santa isn't real," through a bullhorn while holding signs. Though this was certainly a nuisance, it obviously hadn't gotten Urbanski and his associates the attention they had wanted, because soon after, they allegedly came directly onto church property, continuing to yell that Santa wasn't real, while now actively confronting attendees of the pancake breakfast. Apparently, when police arrived, the group of protesters were busy confronting a woman who was with her kids near her car. Police allegedly told them to get off the property, and 2 of them listened, though Urbanski was allegedly uncooperative. He was arrested and later charged with criminal trespassing. Urbanski would later attempt to explain his actions by saying that he was a born-again Christian who believed every word of the Bible and was against lying. In a legal motion attempting to get the charges against him thrown out, he argued, quote, "Ergo, because Santa does not exist, it is a lie/sin to lead children to believe that Santa is real or to do things in Santa's name, because acts of Christian charity should be done in Christ's name and not in that of a false idol." While we unfortunately could not find out what ultimately happened to Urbanski, it seems that this argument was dismissed by the courts, as we came across a document from the State Court of Appeals that affirmed the charges against him in November of 2019.
In January of 2015, a 57-year-old California man was arrested after he was caught illegally dispensing a chemically induced bit of post-Christmas cheer at a local restaurant. According to reports, at approximately 4 p.m. on January 5th, police were dispatched to a Buffalo Wild Wings location in the city of Seaside in Monterey County after they received calls that a man referring to himself as Santa was handing out handfuls of marijuana to customers and employees there. When officers arrived at the restaurant, they were told that the man was wrapping the marijuana in napkins and giving it to people, telling them he had a gift for them. One employee at the Buffalo Wild Wings was given an especially large helping of the marijuana, and the man had even stuffed a good amount in the restaurant's tip jar. Though the man claimed his name was Santa, police were eventually able to identify him as 57-year-old Randy Lang. When officers searched Lang's belongings, they found more than 2 additional pounds of marijuana that had been pre-packaged. Lang was subsequently arrested for furnishing marijuana.
Back in December of 2009, a 55-year-old man from the city of Sparta, Wisconsin, was charged after a bizarre incident in which he drunkenly showed up in the yard of a local family dressed as Santa and inquired about the location of his reindeer. According to reports, the incident began on the afternoon of December 13th, when a woman named Tina Reinhardt saw a man dressed as Santa get out of a vehicle on her street and stumble into her yard where her children were playing. The man proceeded to hug the kids before asking them repeatedly if they knew where his reindeer were. Reinhardt responded to the situation the way most concerned parents would, and called the police. When officers arrived at the scene, they found the obviously intoxicated Santa still there, as well as another man who had been driving the car he arrived in. They were subsequently identified as Thomas and Kevin Arnold. Thomas was cited for having an open can of beer in a vehicle, while Kevin, who was also allegedly drunk, was arrested for impaired driving. The two were reportedly on their way home from a Christmas party at the time of the incident and didn't mean any harm, though evidently their drunkenness was obvious even to the children who were present. 9-year-old Katie Doherty, one of the children who Thomas Arnold had approached, remarked to local media at the time, "He smelled like alcohol, so I knew it wasn't the real Santa, because Santa doesn't drink alcohol."
Though this 2010 crime didn't take place until 2 months after Christmas, we felt that it was still festive enough to include on our list, given that it had garnered the perpetrator behind it the nickname the Santa Claus Burglar. On February 19, 2010, a concerned resident in Seattle's Seward Park area called police after they heard yells for help coming from their neighbor's home. When emergency responders arrived at the scene, they discovered that none of the residents of the house were in trouble. However, there was someone inside. It turned out to be a naked man who had gotten himself wedged in the house's chimney. After 45 minutes of chiseling into the brick chimney, the man was finally freed. He was subsequently identified as 23-year-old Sean Chanel. Though Chanel was reportedly not injured, needless to say, authorities wanted an explanation from him. He responded that his friend had thrown his backpack into the chimney and that he was simply trying to retrieve it. He said that he had placed a chair on an air conditioning unit in order to gain access to the roof, but had gotten stuck once inside the chimney. While authorities didn't doubt Chanel's explanation for how he had gotten stuck, the same couldn't be said for the reason he had climbed into the chimney in the first place. For starters, the chimney had reportedly been covered with a metal grating that would have prevented anything from accidentally falling inside, including his backpack. More importantly, the bag in question was found leaning against the garage door of the house. Based on Chanel's prior drug and theft convictions, investigators concluded that he was likely trying to use the chimney to gain access to the house so he could rob it, and he was subsequently charged with residential burglary. He was ultimately sentenced to 17 months in prison. Unfortunately, none of the stories we came across specified why he was naked at the time of the incident, though it's possible he either removed his clothes beforehand or somehow took them off after becoming stuck in an effort to free himself.
In 2006, a mother in Rock Hill, South Carolina decided to teach her son a lesson she hoped he'd never forget. According to reports, in early December of that year, a woman named Brandy Irvin discovered that her 12-year-old son, Brandon Jones, had gotten into his Christmas presents early. Or to put it more accurately, Brandon had taken the Nintendo Game Boy Advance that he was supposed to get for Christmas from his great-grandmother's house next door without her knowledge or permission, had unwrapped it, and had secretly played with it. When Brandy figured out what her son had done and confronted him about it, he claimed he had no idea where the present was. So Brandy decided to call his bluff and contacted the police. By the time officers arrived, Brandon had confessed, but it was apparently too late. He was hauled off in handcuffs and taken to the police station, where he reportedly waited for hours for his mom to come pick him up. For those wondering why the incident triggered such a harsh response, apparently this was far from the first time that Brandon had gotten himself into serious trouble. According to reports, he had been caught stealing as early as kindergarten, and by the time he was in the 3rd grade, being suspended from school was a common occurrence for him. In the months before the Christmas-related incident, he had been kicked out of school and arrested for trying to hit a police officer. When Brandy was interviewed by local media, she said that having her son arrested was a last resort, and that she didn't want him to become another statistic. Though she ended up pressing petty larceny charges against Brandon, she said he hoped that he would be placed in a disciplinary program as punishment. While it's unclear what happened to Brandon in the years since, there's one thing we know for sure. He definitely did not end up getting that Game Boy for Christmas. At the time, Brandy said she was giving the device to someone else. Do you know of any other cases like this that you think we should check out? Tell us about them in the comments section below. As always, if you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest releases. Thank you for watching.